Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers postgame show where myself, Lance Williams, we break down the game, and I'm a little excited, also a little disappointed in the Steelers' 26-24 win over the Indianapolis Colts at Heinz Field in Week 9 that moves their record to 4-4. It's their first time at 500 in 2019. That's their third win in a row. That means the believer's shirt continues. The beard gets a little bit longer, and it also means that Lance has his mask on. Lance, what's up, my man? How's it going?
Still mascaras. When you see the mask, it means it's a good thing, and the mask is out. Before I jump into any of my comments, big up to Sherry Graff Stone, who DM'd me on Twitter, said her husband, Kevin Johnstone, is from Pittsburgh, from the north side, listens to the show. Want to make sure I got that shout out. I'm not disappointed at all. Sometimes you have to win games like this. And what's the best thing that you could say after games like this? Win and
ugly.
correct.
Win ugly.
Yes, win ugly and win incorrect. I mean,
well,
when they
so some people say that games like these, they go around and kind of come around, essentially, meaning that they've lost their share of games the other way. You know what I mean?
They have.
And I think it's a situation where they were due to win one of these. If you think back to 2017, their year where they went 13-3, they won almost all of these games. And now you had this strange dynamic this year where they had turnovers, costly turnovers. And I told you, Lance, before we went on the air, when Jalen Samuels fumbled the football, I was fully expecting this to be another fumble that cost him a game. And let's be honest, it should have, because although there was a third down play, and they wouldn't have gotten a first down if he holds onto the football, it would at least would have led to a punt. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, Jordan Berry has been very good this year. And it would have at least made the Colts have to drive the length of the field to add to that particular the points. I think they kicked a field goal there. No, they scored a touchdown off that turnover, I believe. Didn't they, Lance?
I believe so. I
believe so. They got points off of that turnover. We'll put it that way. So the Steelers, they got lucky in a lot of different ways, none bigger than the Adam Vinatieri shank at the end of the game. Shank is a golf term for when you hit it off the hosel. It does. It's ugly.
Hey, man, that looked like me on the tee when I'm trying to rip it, and I shank it, and it's 4 left, baby. That's what that looked like.
Shank. That's what you say on the golf course. Actually, on the golf course, you don't say the S word. That's like a no-no. You just say, did he do what I just said he did? He's like, yes, he did. Just don't say anything. So Vinatieri's career is coming to an end, but it leads to a Steelers win. Like I said at the start of the show, it's their third straight victory, and now they have the Los Angeles Rams coming into town in Week 10. But we're not going to talk about that at all. We're talking specifically about this game. Lance, let's talk about some game balls or winners, losers, however you want to call it. I'm going to go first, if you don't mind, and I'm going to say that Chris Boswell, kudos to that guy, because I'm just now, and I'm just a fan. I mean absolutely nothing. Mike Tomlin's the one that makes decisions on the team. I'm starting to get comfortable with him kicking again. That 51-yarder at the end of the first half, aided by a personal foul penalty on the Colts, was that a confidence booster, not only for me, but I'm sure for him too. He made all of his kicks, all of his point afters today. Chris Boswell, tremendous job. You agree or disagree?
I don't know why you're nervous. Chris is right. He's money. He's money. He's right. He's not just making them. He's hitting it right down the middle of the fairway, since we're talking about golf analogies here. He's ripping it down. He's fairway Freddy right now.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, there's certain guys that my dad always says, he's unconscious, don't wake him up. Yeah, that's the way he's kicking the ball. Although I wish they would just let him kick it out of the end zone off kickoffs. That's a different story altogether. Who's the player that stood out for you, Lance, in a positive way after this game?
I'm gonna give my game ball to Minkah Fitzpatrick. I thought he made a mistake at the end of the game when he gave up he assisted in giving up that PI call against Nelson. He got fooled on some cheese underneath that route. He should have been on top of that route, and they should have been squeezing that route. But the pick six, I mean, they don't get that pick six, they don't win this game. And when you give up a pick six, you give up a special team score for a touchdown, a pick six, defensive touchdown. The odds of you winning a football game are very slim, because what do you do, Jeff? Always you're chasing the 7 points.
Yep. Absolutely. And it wasn't just any pick six. It was a 96-yard return, which was the third longest in Steelers history. That boy showed some speed running down that sideline. I was like,
How about
he
that
is.
Minka trade? How about that Minka trade?
No, I mean, seriously, that's paying dividends already. He is absolutely paying dividends already. And I do have to say, and this is going to be my next player anyways, but Sade and a bunch of other people in the live chat bringing up Stud Dupree. $2 from Sade. We appreciate that. By the way, if you want to donate to the show, you can. The super chat feature right next to the comment bar to the right is a small little dollar sign. You can donate any amount of money, but we ask all of you that are watching right now, whether it's in replay or live, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. We have almost 200 people watching already. We're only 5 minutes in. The worst you can do is free. Like the video, subscribe. We appreciate it. So,
Let me say something. Before you make another
ahead.
comment, is it Sade or is it Sade?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. But hey, Bud Dupree, you said it before on Wednesday. You said, what does he need to do to lose the Dud Dupree moniker that we, both of us, I think, gave him? And I said he's got to get a sack, a clean sack on a tackle, which is Costanzo, their left tackle. This was considered the best offensive line in the NFL. And he ends up with what? Correct me if I'm wrong, 2 sacks, right?
I believe so. Let me look at the game book. I got the game book up. I was a little confused here. I had the link up from the post-game press conference, and of course, guys are still doing interviews. And I was like, man, what is going on in the background? I am hearing things. Maybe I am going crazy live on YouTube. That would not be a good look. So let me pull it up here as I scroll.
Well, let me just say he had at least one. So while you look it up, he had at least one. And Ali is saying, didn't Jeff make a promise about Stud Dupree? And that was that if he can register a clean sack, not on a tight end, that he would no longer be Dud Dupree, but Stud Dupree. Now, Lance, before it's 2 sacks. You're right, and they're saying it in the they're saying it obviously in the live chat as well. Dave Schofield chimes in. These 2 guys are playing like tremendous bookend pass rushers, and Bud Dupree's playing for his money. We've talked about that before. My question for you, Lance, is he going to make that money in Pittsburgh, do you think, if he keeps this up?
Oh, he's getting paid.
No, but is he getting paid by Pittsburgh?
I'm going to wait till the end of the year. Right now, I would still say no. I don't want to make a knee-jerk reaction based on outstanding production this year. But if that pass rushing duo, if you end the year with double-digit sacks from both your outside linebackers, it's hard to split them up. In fact, I would advise that you don't split them up. And I dare anybody in the live chat to say or to comment on a better pass rushing outside linebacker duo in Pittsburgh right now. We talked about in earlier shows. I think I got a question on my show maybe Friday. And you guys need to check out I said it on Friday about the Steelers will make the playoffs if, and that if was red zone offense. And we'll talk about that on the show. I was asked about Stud Dupree. Are we claiming Stud Dupree now? Is it Stud Dupree?
Well, I have to. You can keep it at Dud, but I have to call him Stud from now on.
No, it's going to be Stud Dupree. I like Stud Dupree. I mean, I was originally no, but I don't think there's a better rushing outside linebacker tandem in the National Football League. If there is one, put it on the live chat, but none jumps to my head right now. If you get double-digit sacks from both, you've got to sign that guy, and he has to remain a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah. I agree. So Bud Dupree, phenomenal job. He and TJ Watt, we can put them together. They played a great game, and they ended up with, I think, what was there, 5 sacks on the Colts on the day?
5 sacks total. And I don't want to diminish the fact that they got 5 sacks total. This was an offensive line that I believe was coming in with 11 on a year, which was second in the National Football League to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they got consistent rush. When Hoyer was in obvious passing situations, he was under duress on every snap.
Yeah. And that actually, it didn't result in the win per se, but I'll tell you what, it was good to see the Steelers defense finally getting after it. We'll talk about their third down defense here, but let's stick with the trend. What is another player that stood out to you in a positive way?
I think the outside linebackers, obviously on the defensive side of football. On the offensive side of football, I'm gonna give up props to Edmonds. I think Edmonds coming off the bench, 12 attempts, 73 yards, averaging 6.1. Obviously, he got a lot of that on the big run of 45 yards. But I thought he came in and added some juice to the running game. I like the way he runs better than Benny Snell. So Snail, Benny No Jets. So I like his contribution to the offense.
Well, I'm not sure if that's like a ringing endorsement that you like him better than Benny Snell, but still, at the same time, I see what you're saying.
Ding. It's one ring. Ding.
Reports were, and we haven't heard this for sure, that Benny Snell could be out for a couple weeks after he had surgery on his meniscus. The team has not done anything, but I do want to get to this super chat, $9.99 from Grayson Brown. He said, "What's happening to Mason?" Referring to Rudolph. Haven't been the same since the Baltimore game. Is it the coaching? I know the inexperience is there, but we have seen him play better than this. Look, here's the thing for me about Mason Rudolph, and I am a Mason Rudolph fan. I'm not going to disagree with that, but I didn't think Mason Rudolph played all that bad today. I don't think that the play calling helped him in many ways. Sometimes I feel that he doesn't want to make that mistake, and therefore it's kind of like paralysis by analysis. I don't know if Lance sees it the same way I do, but when you drop back and he's kind of scanning, he doesn't want to try and put it into those tight windows. I thought one of his best throws of the day was the interception. That throw was in a tiny window. He put it where only his guy could catch it, and it went right through Juju Smith-Schuster's hands and then deflects into the arms of a defender. That was, in my opinion, it was an on-time throw. It was a contested throw. It was an NFL caliber throw, and I thought was his best throw of the game. And
I'm gonna give you a second best throw of the game. Was the throw that he made to Vance McDonald for the touchdown in the red zone, where he scanned both sides of the field, got back to the back half read, stuck it to him. I mean, I don't have a problem with Mason Rudolph. He is what he is right now. I think what the Steelers are trying to do is not lose the game through quarterback play. I think they trust this defense, although this defense has to start. I mean, it's been playing better in the red zone, but it's got to get a little bit better in the red zone. And it's got to get some people off the field in some interesting situations, some third and long situations. But I think they trust this defense. I think you're going to continue to see them take a conservative approach with Mason Rudolph so he does not lose the game for them. I think they feel comfortable with this defense to keep them in the game so he doesn't have to make a lot of plays in the game for them to win football games. But I'm like Grayson. I think they need to turn him loose a little bit. Let him try to throw the ball in between the numbers because Vanette is getting no targets. And so I think you got to attack the seams because at some point in time, you saw the Colts make the adjustment in the second half. They took Samuels away in the short passing game. And so when they do that, what's the adjustment that the Steelers can make with a signal caller that they may not trust? They got to run the football better. So it's still a work in progress.
Well, answer me this, or as you say, riddle me this. They come out in the first offensive series and they run the no huddle and they move the ball right up the field and they don't do it again. There's decisions. This is on Mason Rudolph. This is just more an offensive statement. Some of the things that they're doing make no sense to me. So you have success with the no huddle up tempo, and then you kind of revert in the second half to run, pass. I just don't get some of the decisions that are being made, Lance. I mean, is there any logical reasoning behind it?
Yeah, it's head scratching. I almost said bone scratching. but it's head scratching. I don't understand. I thought Mason Rudolph came out with a nice tempo, nice rhythm. I thought the no huddle gave him a nice rhythm, and that's one thing that I was asking for when I did a couple of shows a couple of weeks ago about Dib turning him loose. Was playing with tempo and running some no huddle. I just don't know. It's really weird. I mean, I bet it's just very difficult. You have an inexperienced guy at quarterback, and so there's this tug and this pull of you're trying to reel them in, you want to let them go. It's sort of like that rubber band. It's like, you want to stretch it, but you're afraid at what point will it pop. And so you're always trying to just, manage it in a way to where he won't lose you a game. And when you have a defense that you're comfortable with, they're going to get conservative in spots. And it's just going to be frustrating. We talked about it on earlier shows, is that the variance in his play is going to go up and down. But again, if they want to get a proper evaluation of him, they are going to have to turn him loose, because at some point in time, you're going to have to win the shootout game. And can you win the shootout game with Mason Rudolph?
You're right there. I agree 100%. Now, Michael puts $5 in the tip jar again. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. If you want to donate to the show, the super chat feature next to the comment bar, there's a little dollar sign. You can donate any amount of money, and we appreciate it. Michael says, please give Nelson, referring to Steven Nelson, a shout. Man, other than an unreal catch and throw and a bogus defensive pass interference call, this guy's name has not mentioned in the last 3 games. And at the cornerback position, if you're not being talked about, that is a really, really good thing. And I want to say this, because I can't stand some of these old head beat writers like Ed Bouchette of The Athletic, who are going nuts about, well, the Steelers free agent duds continue as they release Dante Moncrief. Or is no one bringing up the fact that Steven Nelson, who was the highest paid free agent acquisition in team history, is playing tremendous? Anyone?
Nobody except us.
I understand that you're going to talk about if we're going to use if we're going to use a golf analogy, still continuing that trend, that you might duck hook one into the woods from time to time, but what about that shot that he stuck within 2 feet on that par 3 the following hole? Steven Nelson has been tremendous for them, and unfortunately, other than, like he said, the great catch on the sideline and losing his shoe today, you didn't see or hear from him. You can speak to Steven Nelson, Lance, but I mean, hey, he's been great.
Yeah, he's been solid. And I'm glad they got this win, because the way he's played this year, I would have hated him being the potential culprit in them losing the game on the PI call.
Which was horrible. Which was
horrible. It was absolutely uncatchable. And that speaks to Tomlin's challenge. You should not challenge a PI if you're a coach. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to lose. That's a bad challenge. They were lucky and fortunate that it did not cost them the game. That lack of a timeout that they lost there, no coach should challenge a PI. It's not going to get overturned. It just is not. But Nelson was solid. Nelson has been solid all year. He's played better than Joe Hayden this year. And again, he's the most expensive free agent acquisition. So if you're going to judge the Steelers acquiring free agents, you would judge them most by the most expensive guy, not probably the least expensive guy. And it just worked out bad for Dante Moncrief. We predicted it weeks ago that he was going to be waived so they could get that 3rd round pick. Unfortunately for him, it did not work out. I'm sure he will get picked up. I think he's a solid player. It just didn't work out for him. But again, outstanding. I mean, Nelson has played fantastic football this year. He is not the candy bar.
No.
Or if he is the candy bar, he's the Mounds. He's the one, or he's the Mounds or the Milky Way, the 2 candy bars that everyone leaves in the bowl after Halloween.
I don't know. I want to bring that up again later. I think that's worth talking about. But still, there were 3 pass interference calls challenged in this game. 0 were overturned. The statistics are staggering. As you mentioned, the coaches should not challenge them. They're not going to overturn them. I want to say there's only been a handful of overturned calls in this, which to my opinion, and someone that's on the competition committee for Mike Tomlin being on the competition committee, you got to know they're not going to overturn. Don't challenge the call. Save your timeouts. Understand the situation. Horrible end of the game there, but I do want to get to this here. Brandon puts $1.99 in the tip jar. He says, why is everyone expecting Mason Rudolph to be a Hall of Fame quarterback right now? I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the expectation went from seasoned veteran franchise quarterback Ben Roethlisberger down to let's call a spade, Lance. He's a rookie. He's not a rookie, but he's a rookie.
Yeah.
This guy has only played, I think, what is this, his 5th or 6th start of his NFL career? You want to talk about who they've played the last 2 games, and Brian Hoyer and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Those are journeyman players that have been around the block, that have seen all these defensive looks. He is a learning quarterback. And so I wish that if you're a young fan out there that wasn't really understanding like what was going on in 2004, go back to YouTube and find some old footage of Ben Roethlisberger in 2004. He did not look like the 2017 Ben Roethlisberger or the 2018 that threw for 5,000 yards. He didn't. He looked like, okay, game manager, hand it off, please defense make a play. Am I right or am I right?
You're absolutely right. He looked like a guy where you lean on the running game and your defense, point blank. But I don't think anybody expects Mason Rudolph to be a Hall of Famer. To what Jeff
Some of
said,
these people do. Some of
I
these
mean,
people are complaining. I want to say something else. Complaining and moaning about his play, and he's not losing them games.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's going to be. They are going to they're going to spoon feed him. They're going to give him a little bit more and more, sort of like when you have a newborn. You got breast milk, you got formula, you introduce them slowly on vegetables, you introduce them slowly on, fruit, then you mix in some more solids. They're going to continue to add more and more to his plate. As long as they're continuing to do that and they can make a proper evaluation of the player by the end of the season, it's win-win for me. The one thing that they can't do is handcuff the kid, and they're not able to make an evaluation on if the kid is the guy that they can move forward with after the Ben Roethlisberger era is over. So it's a delicate dance in terms of how you manage a young quarterback.
All right, $2 from 410 Carpenter Legend. He says that stupid challenge by Mike. He's referring to Tomlin's challenge of the pass interference. Vodka Drinker puts $2 in the tip jar. Says our red zone offense play calling is straight butt. I mean, that is his words, not mine. Go ahead and speak to that. Go ahead and speak to that.
Yeah, it is bad. It is really bad. And I think what they're doing down there is because the field is condensed. I talked about it in the show, the Friday show. Yeah, I said it that the Steelers will go to the playoffs if their red zone offense improves. They're scared to have Mason Rudolph throw the ball in the tight windows, period. And they don't run the ball well enough to aid him in the red zone. So oftentimes when they're running the ball in the red zone, they are not picking up yards, and he is being put into some disadvantageous third down opportunities, third and longs, third and mids. Those are difficult for veterans in the red zone to complete consistently for touchdowns. So I don't know if it's the play calling. Well, I will say, I will agree. It is some of the play calling, because if you're going to run pass in the red zone, they're not going to pick it up.
Well, let's I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to chime in here quickly. When you don't, what did we say when Ben Roethlisberger was struggling in the red zone? What did they not do? They didn't run it well enough. And so when the field gets short and you have a good defense, a good secondary, they don't have to cover as much ground. They can bait you into bad decisions. And so Mason Rudolph is not an experienced quarterback yet. And so he is still, you can see it. I mean, I even looks like they're running some design bootlegs in the red zone. I'm thinking, why in the world would you cut the field in half?
You're going to cut the field in half.
Cut the field in half when it's already a short field. It seems like it's the dumbest thing you could do, but it's because they probably don't think that he's going to be able to process. And they, like you said, they trust their defense, and they want to make sure that they at least get 3 and not have that costly red zone turnover. But at some point, you're going to have to throw the ball on first down and not just try to run it. And I wish they would also try to run it when they're spread a little bit, at least a couple times.
Jeff, when's the last time you seen them run a shallow cross in the red zone?
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Like never. It's almost never. Yeah, they're pretty hamstrung in the red zone. It's hard to be creative with a play caller that you don't, with the signal caller that you don't trust. And they don't run it, like you said again, Jeff, they don't run it well enough. They went 1 for 4 in the red zone. I'm going to guess after this game that they'll probably be ranked 32nd in the National Football League in red zone offense. They were 28th, 29th. I'm going to guess they'll be dead last at the end of this game.
Well, I'll tell you this, though. Other than that, offensively, I saw strides today in terms of them moving the football. They got into the red zone with ease. I mean, and people were complaining about Miami game in the first half. Definitely a strides better than what it was, but at the same time, they're stalling in the red zone. I feel like that's just the next progression for this offense.
Let me toss this to the live chat. How many punts do you guys think the Steelers had today?
You counting the free kick or not?
No, I'm not counting free kick.
Okay. Well, while they think, are you going to answer now? Or do you want to wait a little bit?
I'll wait a little bit.
Okay. We have a couple live super chats to get to. Ryan, here's a good question. $5 from Ryan O'Toole. He says, any chance the difference in Dupree could be tied to Joey Porter not coaching him? That's a great question. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure. It's hard to answer a question like that because you're not seeing what they're doing. But I mean, he's not coaching them, and he's playing better. I think it's probably he's just motivated to get paid. mean, I mean, look, when you're trying to hunt that money, you trying to eat filet mignon and ribeyes and T-bones instead of sirloin and breakfast steaks, you'll get after the quarterback. And I don't think anyone has ever doubted the fact that Bud Dupree is a physical freak. I mean, he's a specimen out there. I mean, he's a big kid, 6'4", 6'5", about 275. What did he run in the combine? Probably 4'5", 4'6". I mean, he's a physical freak. So the physical ability has always been there. And sometimes it just takes guys years. But that motivation of getting some money is that kick in the butt that you need.
And I will say this, that speaking with Chris Carter from DK Pittsburgh Sports, who has been to inside that locker room, who has spoken to Bud Dupree, asked him specifically in training camp what the difference is. And he literally answered with, they're just letting me do what I do. In other words, just use your speed, use your athleticism, get a few moves that you really trust, and just go get the quarterback. Is it that simple? I doubt it. But at the same time, it's working.
Well, you know what the phrase is, Jeff. If you're thinking, you're stinking.
That's true.
So, maybe he's not thinking. He's just going to hunt. And, sometimes, and you've coached for a long time. I've coached longer than me. Sometimes when you take some of the mental stuff away, it allows guys to play freer and faster. And that's clearly what he's doing. He is playing his best football of his career.
Very good. All right. Let's see if you can pronounce this name there, Lance. You see that on the screen? Go ahead and give that a shot.
Lania.
Yeah, that's probably right. That's good.
Lania Lavelle.
There you go. She gave us a super chat saying hello, finally seeing you guys live. We appreciate that. There's a lot of people that have watched the shows, that are subscribed to the channel, but don't get to see us live that often. So it's pretty cool when you see that. Go ahead and answer that question. We have a lot of guesses in the live chat about the punt. How many punts? I think I know. Do you want me to take a guess?
Well, pop that question back up. I can't see the question anymore.
No. The question was,
it's one punt. One punt.
That's exactly right. I thought that was just one punt.
Yeah. So when you punt once, you're moving the football. I mean, when you punt once, you're definitely moving the football. In fact, very interesting game in terms of punts. If I can find that again, with the mask, I can't see. There were only 4 punts in the game. So, and it was a very quick game. I don't know if anyone noticed.
Well, until the end and all the stupid challenges.
Yeah, but I don't know if anybody noticed. I think the first quarter, in terms of just time, was 30 minutes. I was cheering with pom-poms on as I was doing my step, watching the game. Jeff knows what I'm talking about. I do steps when I watch the game. That helps me. I get my steps in for the day, trying to get my 10,000 steps. I have my little dumbbells out, and I was trying to get my 10,000 steps. So quick game. I was like, great, this will get through this in 2 hours. Then no, 7,000 challenges in the second half. Terrible.
So here's the thing for me is a lot of people here are chiming in about Mason Rudolph, lack of scanning the field and stuff like that. Can someone please tell me, a guy that is just playing for the first time in his NFL career, not his first game, but his first season as a starter, someone that's been able to come in and look like Tom Brady in terms of reading defenses and hitting it, and anyone. Seriously,
I have one answer, but it's unfair for me to even say the answer because the guy is from Pittsburgh. He's from my paisan,
Dan Marino.
Exactly, but that's one guy. That's one guy. To your point, it's just one guy.
So let's look at the percentages there. The percentages is that most quarterbacks are going to struggle, and it's just nature. I mean, that's what it is. So that and there you go. All right, Lance. Let's look at the. We don't have any other super chats right now. So if you want to have this the book open, the game book, why don't you go over some statistics?
Did we have the super chat for Laniel? Was it? Does she have a question?
Joe just saying hello. Just donated some money.
Hey. Yeah. Oh well, hi.
It's Lanier, actually.
Lanier. I'm sorry. Lanier. Hi. Let's jump into the game book. Third down efficiency, the Colts 4 of 12, 33%, but they were 2 of 3 on fourth down. The Steelers were 5 of 13 on third down. Anything stand out to you there, Jeff, with the Colts, particularly being able to convert some third and longs?
Well, some of the there was the one conversion. I want to say it was 3rd and 19. They didn't surrender the first down, but they gave up 18 yards, and then they ended up going for it on fourth down and getting it. So although that doesn't go down as a third down conversion, to me, that goes down as basically a conversion. Their fourth down conversion would then show that. I thought that at least defensively, the Steelers' third down defense got better as the game wore on. It literally looked like the Steelers' pass rush was wearing down the Colts' offensive line. And that's a good group. We talked about that at the beginning of the show. That's a good group. What are your thoughts on the third down defense?
I think one thing that stands out game is, and correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat, and I got to watch the film again because I could be wrong, but it looked like the Steelers made a conscious decision to take Devin Bush out of the game in some sub-package situations. And there was a play in the red zone where he gets beat by Doyle. And we talked about Doyle when we broke the game down last week about Ebron, Doyle, the use of the tight ends. The key to third down defense at times is just being aware situationally. Sometimes you can give up a catch if you tackle the catch to force a punt. Sometimes you don't have to be overly aggressive and play the football and try to make the play. Sometimes the play is simply tackle the catch. And I think in some situations, the Steelers were a little bit over aggressive. But I think to your point about the pass rushing eventually wearing, I think you're right. Because I think early in the game, the lack of pass rush, I think, really exposed Bush and Barron in some underneath coverage situations. One thing I would like to see the young player Bush get better in is being a little better in coverage. I think that's kind of standing out. One thing that stands out to me in the game book was, and we didn't mention it, and I don't know if he can't get a game ball if you put the ball on the ground, but Jalen Samuels, 13 targets, 13 receptions, and I think that was a Steeler record. I believe Dan Fouts spoke to that. What's your thoughts on Samuels and those 13 receptions?
My first thought is Dan Fouts is an idiot. Can't stand that guy. He says the dumbest stuff. Anyways. Don't want to get off on a tangent there.
And he was an Oregon Duck, so no love for Dan.
There we go. You and your Pac-12 stuff. Okay. For me, I thought that Samuels. I'm trying to figure out, and I'm running the game back in my mind. Were a lot of his receptions by design, or were they just checkdowns? I think it's probably a happy median between the two. But still. He's proven that although different from James Conner, he's still effective. And I think that I really hate that he had that fumble, because if he didn't have that fumble, I thought he had a tremendous game. That fumble almost cost him a game, and some would say should have cost him the game. What was his overall stat line again? I know he had 13 receptions, but how many yards and how many yards rushing? He didn't have many yards rushing.
13 targets, 13 receptions, 73 yards, 5.6 average. He ran it 8 times. For 10 yards for a 1.3 average. Outside of, so the Steelers ran it for 90 yards. Half of that was on the 45-yard game by Edmonds early in the game. You take away that, and I hate when guys say that, but I am going to say that. That's 24 attempts for 45 yards. That's not going to get it done. They've got to run it better, and we've talked about that all year, that they've got to run the football better, and that definitely has to improve. Let me give you another number, a couple of numbers that stood out to me. And Dave asked the question on our personal chat during the game. Did James Washington have a breakout game? 4 targets, 4 receptions, 69 yards, averaged 17.3 yards per catch, had a long of 40. Was this a breakout game for him, in your opinion?
Yes, absolutely. Why? Because he made key catches. At this point in his career, and especially with the trajectory that he had been on, you can't nitpick. So let's be honest, a breakout game for him was 50 yards or more. This was the first, let me say it this way. Let me put it this way. This is the first time that James Washington looked like the player we watch in the preseason, in the regular season. He was making big catches, had the 40-yard completion from Rudolph in the second half, which was good to see, made some really nice contested catches. That's what we saw in the preseason. And then when the regular season would roll around, everyone would say, where's he going? Where does he go? Like, how does this guy just disappear? We're now starting to see it. This couldn't happen at a better time. Now, here's what I'm starting to see happen. Juju Smith-Schuster, I want to talk about him in a second. If you
And
don't
we'll
bring him
point
up,
out his number. Let me point out his numbers so you can mention
go
it. Let me
ahead.
give you his numbers for the game. 5 targets, 3 receptions, 16 yards for an average of 5.3. Of those 16 yards, he had a long of 12. So his other 2 catches were for 4 yards. He is not being utilized. Go ahead, Jeff.
So everyone's talking about how there needs to be a weapon or a threat opposite of Juju Smith-Schuster to give him some space. Deontay Johnson and James Washington, although they're not there yet, I feel like they're on the cusp. And it's also indicative of the Steelers' offense as a whole. In other words, the Steelers' offense doesn't do anything that great right now. They are mediocre in a lot of different areas, but they don't do any one thing particularly well. And so for me, I think that the Steelers, if they continue trending in this direction, which I do think, I'll ask you this question. Do you think that the Steelers offense is trending in the right direction? I think they are. They're moving the ball better. Mason Rudolph does look more comfortable. I think that James Washington did have a breakout game. It's a good look for the Steelers offense moving forward. Do you agree or disagree?
I hate to be that guy to bring in a bit of negativity because I've been doing better. I've been being more positive. I'm breaking out the mask. I've been going to my Steeler therapy sessions and I've been talking to my Steeler therapist and I've been trying to be a little bit more popular. I don't want to poke fun to anybody that goes to therapy. Therapy is very important.
Very important. Everyone needs it.
So, but what I say is, no, they're treading water. And if you're treading water, you're not improving. The reason why I say they're treading water is they're not good in the red area. You get 4 red zone attempts, you need to convert at least 2. You convert that red zone attempt early in the game, this game is not as close. They win the game, but they've got to do better in the red area. It was an improvement. They got 4 red zone attempts, and that's the thing now. But it's 1 + 1 = 2, not 1 + 1 = 1, because what they're doing is they're moving the ball better. I think they're finding a formula to move the football, short passing game, although that puts them in a lot of third down attempts. But short passing game, integrate a little bit of running, being safe with the football for Mason Rudolph. They're finding an occasional deep shot. They're finding some ways to move the football, but they got to score touchdowns. I mean, you just have to. You have to score touchdowns in the red zone because they don't get a ton of big plays in their offense. So I think the offense is treading water, but at least it's moving the football a little better, more consistent.
Well, I think that because they are moving the balls means they're trending in the right direction. I see what you're saying about the red zone, and trust me, it comes down to points scored. They did put up 26 today. That would be higher than their average. Their average for the season would then go up. So for me, I'm looking at it and saying, well, I think they're going in the right direction. They're not there. They're not great, but I think they're going in the right direction.
Well, they scored 19.
When you look at the stats, they don't differentiate between offense and defense. It's points per game, not offensive points per game. Points per game.
You are correct. They do
just
count.
Like in the interception catalog, they don't have tipped off receivers' hands and take 2 away from Mason Rudolph.
True.
Okay.
Touche.
Let's talk about Juju Smith-Schuster for a second. What was his stat line when all was said and done?
5 targets, 3 receptions, 16 yards for an average of 5.3 per catch.
5 targets?
Yes.
That's bad.
Yes. And one of those targets was a horrible 4th down call.
Well, if Filer holds his block for a second.
That works.
It works.
A second.
He didn't, and Juju couldn't elude the tackler and get stopped. So still, what is the deal with this situation? They need to give him more targets. You don't want to stare him down. I get all that. How do you find success for Juju moving forward if you're the Steelers offense?
I think they've got to stop isolating Juju as the X or the outside receiver, the X or the Z. They have to let him be the Y receiver. I think they have to move him around to more areas in the formation. They're playing him, in my opinion, a lot like Antonio Brown as the isolated X receiver outside the numbers where he has to win on one-on-one coverage. But I think you can load up on that and take him away. I think they have to move him around the formation and try to get a little more creative with how they use him.
Okay. I have to say this because it's being talked about a lot in the live chat right now. And that is that, and I think back to when Bruce Arians was let go. They bring in Todd Haley. Everyone wanted Haley fired. I mean, that was like fire Haley. Hasn't been as much about Fichtner, but now people are getting frustrated. How much of the offensive struggle do you put on Randy Fichtner's shoulders?
Probably about 75%, 80%.
That much.
Is that a ghost in the background, Jeff?
That's my dog shaking.
Hi, puppy. I'm gonna put 80% on Fichtner. I'm gonna put 20% on the quarterback. The quarterback's young. Like we said, he's pretty much, for all intents and purposes, he's a rookie. They've got to find a better way to get him unlocked and loosened up. They've got to figure that out. The onus has to be on the coaching. I'm not a guy that loves to blame players. I like to put it on coaching. Coaching has to put players in position to be successful, and they have to do a better job of that. So I don't know if that's the player not demonstrating to the coaches during the week of practice that he's prepared to let them get a little more creative in terms of what they want to do. I'm going to put 80% on Fichtner. I'm going to put another 10% on the offensive line in terms of them not getting the running game going. And I'm going to put 10% on Mason Rudolph. You've got to pick up a young signal caller. They've got to run it better. They've got to coordinate it better and call better games to give him a better opportunity to succeed. This, to me, is all on Randy Fichtner to a large extent. Look at the calls in the red zone. Absolutely abysmal.
Absolutely. So as we are on the cusp of having 400 people watching the show live right now, I just want to remind everyone, if you don't want to give us your money, which we don't ask for your money, that's just something that you can do in terms of the super chat. The best way you can help us out, and it is completely free, is by just hitting the like button. Hit the thumbs up button. Doing so helps promote our channel. Subscribing to our channel obviously helps. We have a goal of 6,000 by the end of the season. We'll see if we can get there. We're over 4,300 right now.
I'm gonna tell you something that the live chat could get on with, and when I mention this, I want you guys to hit the like button. The Cleveland Clowns are getting smashed by the Denver Broncos. I know you like that. Like.
Oh, the Browns. And everyone's, tonight the Steeler fans have to do something very dirty. It's very dirty. And I don't know. You know what I'm talking about, Lance? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
and
I do.
I honestly don't even want to say it out loud. I feel like if I turn this into a verbal discourse, then I would be breaking some type of commandment as a Steelers fan. So I'm just going to put this up here on the chat. Someone else said it for me. We have to root for that team up north. As the Ravens play that team up north. It is up north, right? Or is it M&T Bank?
I think it's an M&T Bank.
Ooh, that makes it interesting.
And I bet that those guys play the all black. I think it is the Ed Reed Hall of Fame dedication game.
Oh gosh. Just wait till next year when we have our Troy Polamalu dedication game. That's what I'm talking about.
I think it's the Ed Reed game, if I'm not mistaken, and I think they're going to wear all black in that game.
I hope they get their doors blown off. I hope they do. Because, hey, this is something that's funny. I had someone at work that's a Patriots fan said, oh, what do you think about the Pats? I'm like, I don't care what the Patriots do. Like, right now, the Steelers' focus should be on themselves, which they finally got back to 400, 4-4. That's noteworthy, to my opinion. And they got to root against the Ravens every week. Just try to stay relevant. What's interesting, too, is that the team that they're chasing right now in the standings, if you're looking that far ahead, is the Colts. They have the head-to-head win over them now, so that's important. This question. Okay. Joseph asked a question. I'll bring it up. Do you think they should try Duck? Rudolph seems to be very inaccurate in those check down passes to only one player. Can somebody please tell me, in week 6 against the Los Angeles Chargers, what did Devlin Hodges do? You must see something I didn't.
Yeah.
What did Devlin Hodges do that made people think that he's going to be better than Mason Rudolph? Lance, what did you see?
It's the backup. Nothing. It's the backup quarterback. We all love backup quarterbacks. That's just how it is. I mean, it was Duck Dynasty, good story, Duck calls, all that good stuff, man. But Duck, I mean, they like the fact that Duck is going to turn it loose, but it's going to be a Duck more than likely when he turns it loose, and it's probably going to get turned over. But I was laughing at Dallas Quinley's comment.
I'll bring it up.
When
There you go.
my wife wants to know, when are we going to talk about how cute Rudolph is?
I hear that all the time. My daughters think he's very attractive, and they're little kids, but they still saw him on the TV and said, "Oh, I like Mason Rudolph." They like Mason Rudolph, and they like Sidney Crosby. Those two guys.
Oh
So
well, I mean, hey,
good
if
looking
him
dude,
being
man.
if
Good looking
him
dude.
being cute helps him throw in between the numbers, I'm all for it. We'll talk about it when he completes maybe 5 passes in between the numbers. We'll talk about his Q rating, but right now he needs to increase that QBR rating in the red zone.
Right. Okay, look, Mason Rudolph, everyone knows Bill Davis said this on the live chat. I'll put it up there. Jeff loves Mason. He cannot be asked this question. So Lance does not necessarily love Mason, and he answered the question. I, it's a backup quarterback situation. I guess, until I don't know. I just don't think that there's no one on the roster right now, including Paxton Lynch, is the third quarterback on the depth chart, that is going to be right now the answer. They have the best guy in there that they feel like they have on the roster. Period.
I mean, the goal of it is to win games. He's winning games. He's not causing them to lose games. He's winning games. That's what you want to do, win games. They've stacked 3 wins in a row. I mean, it is what it is. And I am correct. It is the Ed Reed Hall of Fame ceremony game, and they will be wearing their black jerseys. So hopefully that means they play well, because Ed typically played very well against Tom Brady. And maybe their new great safety, Earl Thomas, will do the same.
I hope that doesn't happen. Hope it doesn't happen. So, anything else stand out to you, Lance, about this game at any point? Not just the ending.
The play calling, when they gave up the safety, I know we went a little bit ad nauseum on our texting. I just really didn't like the play calling. The play calling with Fiedner, it's just a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes they play call as if they can run the ball well, but they can't run the ball well. I just feel like they need to be a little more creative with their short passing game, because right now that's clearly what Mason Rudolph executes well. But the only stat that really jumped out to me in this game, other than the ones that we talked about, and maybe in the live chat people will come up with a few, is the Steelers' red zone defense was not very good today, 3 of 4. And typically, if you give up 3 red zone scores and you only score 1, you lose the game. This was a very weird game. When you have a first ballot Hall of Fame guy miss a field goal for you to get the win. But the other interesting stat, and speak to this, Jeff, and I think I wrote it down. Fouts said it, and I know you don't like Fouts, but I think Fouts said that the Steelers have turned it over. What did he say? 15 consecutive games?
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter. Someone else had that stat. It wasn't Fouts. He's not.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing that they've put the ball on the ground or through interceptions that much. And that might be one of the biggest things to point at, and why they didn't make the playoffs last year, and why they're only 4-4 this year. You can't consistently turn the football over game in, game out and expect to win, because now they're getting turnovers. Imagine if they did not give up turnovers, how good they could be.
It is remarkable. Well, especially this year, because they're taking it away so much. I want to say, what did they have? 4 turnovers today, Lance, defensively, takeaways.
Let me look at the game book. I think so. I know Minka. I think they had 3 fumble recoveries and an interception. I know Minka got the interception. Fumble recoveries. Go ahead and talk about something while I find that. Sometimes it's hard for me to comb through this pretty quickly.
Well, when they come in, and I mean, like to your point about the offense, and I just look at this defense finally taking the ball away, and I think someone's in the live chat. I'd have to double check this myself, that they're now tied. Now the Patriots don't play till tonight. They were in the lead, but they're now tied for the most takeaways in the NFL. But I think they had 2 giveaways, the interception and a fumble, and then they had 4 takeaways plus 2 on that ratio. So we talked about that a lot, Lance, leading up to the season, about that turnover or giveaway takeaway ratio. The Steelers are very good in that ratio so far this year.
Yeah, I think they got 3. I think they got 3 turnovers today. I'm pretty sure they got the interception, and they got the fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. They got the Hoyer fumble recovery, and they got the fumble recovery in special teams. So I think they got 3 turnovers today.
So I thought it was, like you said, it was a very weird game because the defense, you're thinking to yourself, man, they played well. They had a lot of sacks. They had takeaways, but they struggled in a lot of different areas too. And this was against Brian Hoyer.
Yes.
If Jacoby Brissett stays healthy for this game, Lance, different outcome?
I don't think so, because I don't think you could play worse than I don't think he could play much better than Hoyer played. I mean, Hoyer was 17 of 26, 168. Maybe they go downfield a little bit more. Maybe he avoids some sacks, but he had 3 touchdown passes, had a rating of 105.9. Combined for the position, they had a rating of 107.9. So the quarterbacks played well. Should is not a word that I like to use, but if I'm going to use it, Indianapolis should have got out of here with a win. I mean, there's some other troubling numbers from this game. They run for 4.8 yards per carry, 29 attempts, 139 yards. So this is the type of game where if you make a run and by chance you get to the playoffs and so on and so forth, you look at this one as like, look, hey, man, we were a little bit lucky to get this one, but hey, it is what it is. They count. They're now 500.
They're 500, plain and simple. No one's going to complain about the Steelers shouldn't have to apologize for their schedule in the second half. They shouldn't have to apologize for any way that they win a game, period. And they won the game today. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So, Lance, unless you have any final thoughts, why don't you send us off for the day?
Steeler Nation, another win, another time I wear the mask, Steel Mascaris. Again, want to give a big shout out to Sherry Graff Stone's husband, Kevin Johnstone. Want to give a shout out to everybody in the live chat that contributed. Before we get out of here, if you like the show, bam, hit that like button. Subscribe to the show, get us to 6,000 before the year is up. But with that, we're going to conclude the program. And as always, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.
We will see you next week for another episode of the Steelers postgame show. That's going to be a later show because it's a 4:25 kickoff against the Los Angeles Rams at Heinz Field. We will see you then. In the meantime, make sure you check us out on YouTube. Search BTSC Steelers Radio and all your audio platforms, and BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for your one-stop shop for your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. We'll see you next week. Steelers win. Beat the Colts. See ya.